Hello Slytherins! Miss Sorensen here with video 34, a dominant strategy in multiple choice games. So we've started to talk about dominant strategy, but we're going to complicate things a little bit by looking at games that aren't just two options, they're multiple options. So for example, you can see here, R, we can call them red if you will, they have two choices. They can choose one or they can choose two. But C, we'll call that crimson, they have the option to choose option 1, 2, or 3. So this is a little bit more complicated than our previous one where we're talking about two options each. So I've tried to create some sort of a summary to help us guide where we go. But the basic thing that you do first is you compete two different options. So you're trying to find one to cancel out. So for example, here, we're going to compete option 1 with option 2. So here, we're going to compare the numbers up and down, and you're crossing off the rows horizontally that lose. So for example, since R, remember R stands for these first numbers here, we are going to be comparing the first numbers up and down. So I'm going to ask you, which one's better, R1 or R2? Well, obviously R1 is better, so that's good. But it would have to beat R2 in every single situation in order to cancel out R2. So let's check here. So this is the winner. I'm going to put a check. What's wins here? What's better, 1 or 0? Well, 1 is better. So we're really excited. We're hoping that this last one is going to be R2 so that we can cancel out R2. Okay, what's better, 0 or 2? Oh, 2 is better. So unfortunately, we cannot cross out R2 because R1 only beats it 2 out of the 3 times. So in a situation like this, we would now move on to comparing the C's, or the option 1, 2, and 3 above. And when you do that, I've got this little summary down here. When you're dealing with the upper data, you're going to compare the second numbers left and right, and you're going to cross off columns vertically that lose. So let's go ahead and let's now underline the second numbers left and right. Okay, so let's now compete C1 versus C2. We're only going to compete 2 at a time. So what's better, 0 or 2? Well, in this case, 2 is better, right? We're comparing 0 and 2, so 2 is the better one here. And what about here? What's better, 3 or 1? Oh, in this case, 3 is better, so we didn't get to cancel anything out there. So now I'm going to compete, I don't know, we've got a few options here, and I'm going to list them just so you know what we're dealing with. We just competed C1 versus C2, but we're going to have to compete C1 versus C3, and we're going to have to compete C2 versus C3. And those are 3 of our only options. So I'm going to go next to C1 versus C3. So again, I'm going to underline those second numbers and I'm going to compare them. Remember, we're comparing numbers left and right here. Okay, so which one's better, the 0 or the 1? Well, clearly the 1's better, so I'm going to put a check mark here. We're competing those two numbers. And what's better, 3 or 0? Unfortunately, 3 is better, so we still aren't able to cross anything off. Okay, last thing that we're going to do is we're going to compete C2 versus C3. So here we're competing C2 versus C3. Okay, what's better, 2 or 1? 2 is better. What's better, 1 or 0? Oh, 1 is better. So in every single situation, C2 is a better option than C3, regardless of if R chooses 1 or 2. What does this mean? This means that we can cross off C3 because C2 beats it every time regardless of what R picks. So I'm going to cross this out. Okay. Now that we've done all 3 of the options, we're going to go back and we're going to compete R1 versus R2. Okay, so competing R1 versus R2, remember now we're dealing with the left data. Okay, so now I'm dealing with the left data, and I'm going to compare the first numbers up and down. So I'm comparing 1 and 0, 1 and 0. Okay, what's better here? Is 1 better than 0? Yes, it is. And is 1 better than 0 here? Yes, it is. So which one should we cross off here? Here we should cross off the R2 because R1 beats it every time regardless of if C chooses 1 or 2. So now we're here. All right, now we're down to competing C1 versus C2 against each other again. And now we're dealing with the upper data. And we're going to compare the second numbers left and right. So here I'm dealing with the second numbers left and right. Well, which one's better there? Is the 0 better than the 2 or the 2 better than the 0? Well, here the 2 is better, so you're going to check that. And so that means every time C2 is a better option when we're narrowing it down there. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cross out C1. And we are left with this right here. So the dominant strategy would be R choosing 1 and C choosing 2, and we would end up at 1, 2, where, I don't need these parentheses, where R would end up getting $1 and C2 or C would end up getting $2. So I always want to recommend that you start with the left data. This section right here, it actually doesn't matter, but let's just try to keep this consistent. And let's go ahead and try another one because I know that these are confusing for sure. All right, let's go ahead and let's deal with the left data first. And we're going to compete R1 versus R2. We're going to do R1 versus R3, and then R2 versus R3. And that's all the possibilities. So let's go with R1 versus R2 first. And remember, we are going to be doing the left data, so we're comparing the first numbers up and down. Okay, so in the case that C chooses 1, what's better, 3 or 4? Well, 3 is better. What's better here, 0 or -1? Oh, 0 is better. What's better, 2 or 3? Oh, 3 is better. So we do not have the ability to cross out any row there. So we didn't really have the ability to do this. I'm going to put an X, meaning that didn't really help us at all. All right, now let's go ahead and let's do R1 versus R3. So that's going to be R1 versus R3. Again, we are comparing the first numbers up and down. So I'm going to underline, 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 underline. All right, let's see what we've got here. In the case that C chooses 1, what's better, 3 or 2? Oh, 3 is better. What's better, 0 or -2? Oh, 0 is better. What's better, 2 or -1? Oh, 2 is better. So R1 versus R3 lets us cross off R3 because every time R1 beats it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go just like this. Now you might be saying, oh, okay, let's go to the next one. Well, you have to make sure you finish all 3 of these competitions before moving on to the top Cs. All right, so let's compete R2 versus R3. But then we realize, oh, R3 has already been canceled out, so we can't do that competition. So we're really all set. That's not always the case. So you got to make sure you get all 3 done. But in this case, we're really done, right? Because R3 has already been canceled out from above. All right, so next thing we're going to do is what? We're going to go to that above data. So now we're going to deal with this situation right here. So we're going to deal with the upper numbers. We're going to compare the second numbers left and right. Well, here we can do C1 versus C2, C1 versus C3, and C2 versus C3. Let's see where that gets us. Let's compete C1 versus C2. So here we're left with, remember, we're comparing the second numbers left and right. So if we're doing C1 versus C2, we're going to be competing the second numbers. All right. All right, so if R chooses 1, what's better, -3 or 0? Well, clearly 0 is better. What's better, 4 or 1? Ooh, 4 is better. So for C1 and C2, we really didn't get to cancel anything out. All right, let's go ahead and let's go to C1 versus C3. So C1 versus C3. Okay, in the case that R chooses 1, what's better, -3 or -2? Oh, -2 is better. What's better, 4 or -3? Oh, 4 is better. So nothing really we can do there. All right, now let's go to C2 versus C3. Okay, what's better? 0 or -2? Oh, 0 is better. What's better, 1 or -3? Oh, 1 is better. Oh, good. In this case, C3 gets eliminated because C2 beats it every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cross this off right here. Okay. Ooh! All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our R's because we just did all 3 of the C's. And so now we're only left with competing R1 versus R2. And again, now we're here, and so we're now going to be comparing the first numbers up and down. All right, let's see if there's something that's better here. Is 3 better than -4? Yes, it is. Is 0 better than -1? Yes, it is. So in this case, we can actually cancel out R2. So that's going to be gone. Now there's nothing more that I can compete R against, so I'm going to go back up and I'm going to compete C1 versus C2. And here now I'm comparing the upper data, so I'm comparing the second numbers left and right. Okay, what's better, -3 or 0? Well, obviously 0 is better, so we're going to cross this one out. So we are left with 0, 0. So the dominant strategies is going to be 1 for R, and it's going to be 2 for C, and you're going to end up at 0, 0, meaning that R1 or R will get $0 and C will get $0. Clearly not like the best opportunity for either of them, but that's where the dominant strategy would lead them. All right, let's take a look at example 3. Okay, example 3 is our last problem here. And if you want to pause this and try it on your own, you can. I know that these are a little tricky, so it might be useful for you. All right, I'm going to go over this problem. We're going to first compete U versus M, and then I'll do U versus D, and then I'm going to do M versus D. That will be all 3. So let's start with U versus M, and we're dealing with our left data, so I'm comparing the first numbers up and down. All right, so what's better in this situation? Well, 20 beats 10, 16 beats 6, 12 beats 8. So we've got nothing useful there. Okay, let's try again. So now let's go U versus D. So U versus D, I'm comparing these values right here. Okay, let's see if we've got anything to cancel here. 10 is better than 6. 18 is better than 6, 12 is better than 10. Eey, nothing good there, nothing we can cancel out. Last attempt here is going to be M versus D. So we're going to compete M versus D, which is going to be this one, this one, this one, and that. So let's see what we've got here. We've got 20 beats 6, 18 beats 16, and 10 beats 8, so no good on that one either. So no big deal, that just means we have to jump up to the LCR first, and let's see what we have for our competitions there. For this, we have L versus C, L versus R, and C versus R. So let's do L versus C first. Remember, we're comparing the right-hand ones. By the second ones, left and right, and you're crossing off columns that lose vertically. Okay, so when we're doing this, let's go ahead and let's compare 15 and 27, 27 wins. 18 and 15, 18 wins. 15 and 9, 15 wins. Oy vey, no winners on that either. All right, let's go L versus R. Okay, so we're going left and right. So we're saying that 30 is better than 15. 24 is better than that. But 12 is not better than 15. So we've got that. Okay, everyone cross their fingers that this last one works, because I'm saying, gosh, we've tried them all. Let's go C versus R. Okay, so we're comparing this, this, and this. All right, so now, what's bigger, 27 or 30? Well, that's a 30. 15 or 24? 24 is bigger. 9 or 12? Yay! So in this one, we have eliminated C because R is always the better option regardless of what player one chooses. So we can go ahead and we can cancel. Oop, I wanted to do a different color there. We can cancel this out. I'm a little bit aggressive on my coloring. All right, now that we've done all three of my top values competing, I can go ahead and do the left values competing. So now we're going to do U versus M, U versus D, and then M versus D. And this should make a difference because we've canceled out a column here. All right, so we're going to compare the first numbers up and down. So what that means is doing U and M, I'm going to compare these. So what's better, 10 or 20? Oh, 20. What's better, 12 or 8? Oh, 12. So no consistent thing there that we can cross out. Okay, now let's compete U versus D. So U versus D. U versus D. All right, what's better here, 10 or 6? Oh, 10 is better. What's better, 12 or 10? 12 is better. So that means that we have a loss for D. And remember, when we're comparing the first numbers, you're crossing off rows horizontally that lose. So we're going to be eliminating D. Okay, so I'm going to take this black, and I'm going to eliminate D. But I still have to try M versus D, right? Oh, wait, D is gone. So we don't have to do that one. We basically know that it eliminates D. All right, so now we're going to go back up to comparing our top values. Well, in our top values, we're only left with L versus R. And remember, when we're dealing with the upper data, we're comparing the second numbers left and right. All right, in this case, what is bigger, 30 or 15? Well, that's a 30. How about 24 or 18? Oh, 24 is bigger. So now we can eliminate L. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase all of this, and I'm going to eliminate L. And now I've got nothing else to compete the top R with, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the left, and we're going to compete now U versus M. And of course, since we're doing the left data, we're comparing the first numbers up and down. And what's better, 12 or 8? Well, obviously 12 is bigger than 8, so we cancel off M. So M gets eliminated. And we are left with 12, 30. So the dominant strategy for player 1 is going to be U. The dominant strategy for player 2 is going to be R. And player 1 is going to end up with 12. And player 2 is going to end up with 30. Just a reminder, U gets the first value, and then our upper value gets the second. All right, I hope you're doing okay with those. Everyone have a great day.